Russia's attack on Ukraine has caused stress and fear for all of us, including children who may not be able to avoid seeing frightening images or worrying about their own safety, especially given social media these days. So how can parents and other adults help kids process the information and their emotions? Joining us with her expertise, Dr. Mari Kurahashi, child and adolescent psychiatrist at Stanford Children's Health. Thank you for joining us, doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Should parents, I know a lot of parents are asking this question, should they bring up the topic about Ukraine and the war? And if you're concerned, if the kids haven't asked any questions or made any specific comments?
It's a great question. It depends on a few factors. It's important to think about how old is your child and the temperament of your child. Most likely, regardless of age, children have been exposed to some of the news about Ukraine. If you have a younger child or more of an elementary school age child, it's helpful to inform in more concrete terms, keeping the information more simple, and perhaps using visuals like showing a map of the world and where Ukraine is. And again, describing very simply and concretely the situation while assuring them that adults are doing everything they can to keep them safe. If you have an adolescent, most likely they've been exposed to the news. And so checking in about what they've heard, what they think about the situation, how they're feeling about the situation, and having it be more of a dialogue is more age appropriate.
Okay. How could you recognize that they might be upset by what's happening? What are some signs?
Yeah, so depending on how much they're talking about it, depending on how they're sleeping, eating, their interest in things of usual interest, change in extracurriculars, things like that would be of concern. And checking in, observing out loud if parents are observing any changes, and asking them how they're feeling, how they're doing is helpful.
Okay. I know you mentioned, based on age, they may be able to handle different degrees of truth or specifics. But, I guess my question as a parent is, do you ever lie to a child? Or let's say they ask you, is the possibility there that there could be a World War III? I mean, do you come out and say, yes, it's possible? We hope not. Chances are small and people are doing everything to avoid it, but it's possible. What do you say?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think as parents, we're trying to balance many things. We're wanting to be honest, but we're also wanting to help our children feel secure. And so it's a balancing act. We almost always recommend to tell the truth, but how we tell the truth can be more nuanced and be sensitive. And so if a child were to come out and say that, most likely it would be more of an adolescent age child. And so talking about, yes, there is risk of that. And, what are all the countries working so hard to try to negotiate and navigate? And most likely for a younger child, they won't have such a concept of World War III. So it would be unlikely for them to ask that directly, but they might be asking more about safety. And so along those lines, there is risk. And adults are working very hard to keep them safe as well.
So what are some ways that we can tamp down their stress level? I've heard in the past that when you feel like you don't have power and you feel helpless, doing something to actively try to help the situation could empower you and make you feel better. Does that apply here?
Absolutely. So a couple of things. One, we have this expression of name it to tame it. So being able even just to talk about things that are stressful and emotional can be helpful. It doesn't eliminate the stress, but it can be helpful to feel supported and to have a safe space to discuss concerns. Also, it's an opportunity to be compassionate to others and to show compassion. And just like you're saying, to be helpful, even though it's a very difficult situation, it's not going to fix the situation. And there are ways that families can contribute.
All right, well, let's talk more about that during our break when we go on Facebook Live. Right now, we need to take a short break on the air. Dr. Kurahashi, thank you so much. Stick around.
Yes, Dr.
All right, we have about a couple minutes to finish up here on our streaming platform. We're off the air, but I want to ask you, how do we as parents need to convey that, hey, we can help fix this? Or do we not need to think of ourselves as being fixers? Like we need to offer solutions? Maybe do we just listen and not have to offer answers?
That's fantastic. So yes, so usually with parenting, we can feel like we're in a binary situation, and yet we're not. It's just like you said, that we can certainly discuss what's happening, validate what our children are feeling and thinking, and have a dialogue. And even though we're not able to fix the situation, this is a terrible situation where we're very compassionate to those in Ukraine and families who are affected. And we can still contribute. And sometimes that's all we can do, which is an important life lesson as well. It's rare that we're able to fix things. And so it's important to be able to talk about the difficulty of the experience and to do what we can within our limit.
Okay. What if you sense that something is wrong and they are worried, but they don't want to talk about it? Do you keep trying to kind of pry it out of them, as parents are so often trying to do with all things, just because we're worried and we're concerned, or do you kind of leave them alone?
Great question. So children are usually responsive to feeling that parents genuinely care about them. So regardless of whether our children respond with effusive responses, parents checking in with authentic concern. How are you doing? Talking about any observations they're noticing. I'm noticing you're not sleeping as well, things like that. And then, but also not overdoing it, not over pushing them. If children don't want to speak too much, that's okay. Giving them space and yet checking in, and also taking time to be with them one-on-one.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Take care.